I've spent most of my life in survival mode when I didn't actually really need to be. I was always worried about what was coming next. That's what I thought achievement was. That's what I thought being successful was.
If somebody has maybe just joined us and not done anything in property, they might be asking the question, well, what value can I add in a room where there's probably loads of people that have done loads more than me and they probably have a bit of imposter syndrome? How can they get over that?
Imposter syndrome is really what it means is you feel less than, you feel not quite good enough, but I'm in this kind of state of anxiety. What's really interesting is we're not actually designed to be stressed for very long. If you keep someone in a state of stress, they're going to die.
It's all a bit hard and I'm not going to do it. If you're feeling that way, you're the sort of people that need to come in and join a network of supportive people, because I guarantee you're not the only one, and we've all been like that. And you just need to give yourself a second chance and stop thinking so much.
Building wealth through property isn't about chasing big deals and paydays. It's about owning assets that make money for you consistently. But figuring it all out on your own, that's where most people get stuck. That's why we created this Property Life membership. It's everything we wish we had when we started. Expert guidance, real-world case studies, and a private community of investors actually doing deals, not just talking about them. So you could spend years trying to piece it all together yourself, or you could plug into a system that's already working for our community. Check out our membership page at This Property Life. Everything you need to know is right there. Success is a team sport. Come join in.
Hello and welcome to This Property Life. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah Blaney, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Nick Claydon, and a very special guest of ours, Pete Cohen. Welcome, Pete, to This Property Life.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Very much looking forward to having a conversation with you too.
Yeah, thank you. And Pete's hopefully going to be part of This Property Life for the foreseeable. He's bringing a really different dynamic to it from Nick and I. We're very much property led. Pete is very much mind led, and the body that you're living in and how you can, I guess, just get the best out of life. One of his sayings that I have been thinking about an awful lot since I've met him is, are you surviving or thriving? And I think that's definitely one that I associate with Pete. So I'm going to let Pete sort of give a very brief bio of himself, just so that we've got some context and know who you are, Pete.
Thank you. Yeah, no, look, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I'm very into thriving as opposed to surviving. I think I've spent most of my life in survival mode when I didn't actually really need to be. I don't think I've enjoyed my life as much as I possibly could have, because I was always worried about what was coming next, what I've got to do. That's what I thought achievement was. That's what I thought being successful was, literally constant going at something. But, as they say, whoever they are, that you live and learn. My background is pretty interesting, I suppose. I left school with one GCSE. I hated school, but I do have 3 degrees. I have written 20 books on personal and professional development. I've spoken all over the world. I've worked with world and Olympic champions in sport. I've had a pretty wild time, but I feel like I've only just got started. Genuinely feel like I've only just got started, because I feel I'm in better shape mentally, physically, emotionally than perhaps I've ever been, and ready to inspire people to make the most of the property that they live in. And that's why, I love the work that you guys are doing, because yes, you're in the property business, but you want to help people manage their property, which is this thing that we live in that most people don't really pay much attention to until, in many cases, something happens that disrupts everything. And then all of a sudden, a disaster, a crisis, a prognosis, all of a sudden, people tend to be backed into a corner where they tend to change. So I'm really looking forward to going down this path with you and helping you and supporting you with the people that you help and support, because I really see you guys as pioneers of this industry that you're in.
Before we jump in, let's tackle one of the biggest hurdles for property investors: finding the best buy-to-let locations for top returns. Over the years, we've helped countless individuals pinpoint the most profitable locations and maximise their rental income. To make it easier for you, we've put together a free guide to buy-to-let hotspots for 2025, designed specifically for you to understand the market, stay ahead of the trends, and it even includes a list of our top 10 locations in the UK. Get it now for free by clicking the link in the description below and start building your property portfolio today.
Oh, that's really kind. Thank you,
Very
Pete.
kind.
Yeah, it's something that's really important to us, isn't it, Nick? The whole bringing together not just property, but a little bit of business. And Pete's got an amazing business background as well, but also that mindset.
Yeah, I think we talk about this a lot when we're talking to people, training people in property. I often say to people that I mentor, is 80%, at least 80% mindset. If your mindset isn't right, it doesn't matter what other skills you have or what else you do. It's not going to work for you. You have to get the mind bit right. And I've never thought about, until I met Pete, I never thought about it in the sense of like this property that we live in, is an important thing. And it's been great. I've been thinking about that, and also the thriving and rather than surviving. And every day, thanks to Pete, I wake up and I go, right, where am I at? Am I in survival mode or I'm in thriving mode? And some days, recently it's been survival, but other days I always try to at least think about it and think, yes, I'm surviving, but look, can I do something today that makes you feel like I'm thriving?
It's one of the most fascinating things because we are wired to survive. We're not wired to thrive. We're not wired to create and make amazing things happen. We can do that, but that's a choice. Our true nature, I believe, is survival first, which is interesting because survival often means being able to deal with stress, fight, run away, or freeze, which is how a lot of people live their life today. It's like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm in this kind of state of anxiety. But what's really interesting is we're not actually designed to be stressed for very long. We're just not. If you keep someone in a state of stress, they're going to die. We are designed to experience small amounts of stress. And if we're not careful, if we don't step back and look at our own experience, then the survival instincts could be there all of the time. We're kind of in a state of mild anxiety. And I just don't want that for myself anymore. And I don't want it for the people that I work with. And I just want to say that when you ran that event that I was at the other day, what was that, like a month ago, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, I'm a very nosy person in more ways than one, but I really wanted to know, who are these people and how do they work and how do they operate? And in that room on that day, because I spent the day with you guys, and what was it? How many people were in the room? Was there 100?
Oh no, I think it's probably about 60 or 70.
70, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. What I found, it really resonated with me, and it really struck a chord with me, was how much people cared for everybody else. You had people that have only just started, and you had people that have been in property for a long time and been in under your guidance and your support. And I felt the real connection that people had to each other. Like, we want to help you. We want to support you. And that to me is a key element of thriving, actually. You're thriving when you know that you're not alone and people have genuinely got your back. And that's what you've got in abundance.
Yeah, it's a really important value, I think, that we seem to attract, which is fortuitous and amazing. And we're really privileged, I think, to be able to have that in the community that we've got.
Well, because I asked you, why do you do what you do? And your answer, Sarah, was so that you, Nick, and you guys can hang out together more, because you know of the power that you give each other when you come together. But the fact that you've brought a whole load of other people together just takes that to another level. It's a cliche, right? I think it was Jim Rohn that said, we are the sum of the people, the 2 or 3 people that we spend most time with. But you don't actually have to be with those people all the time. You can feel the power and support of other people when you're away. You feel your support, your structure, like your business, but also you as a person, the business of being you, it is supported by other like-minded people. But I believe we have to start off by auditing exactly where we are at this point in time. And that can be a big challenge for people, because to acknowledge where you are is quite scary, because you might think, oh, this isn't right. This isn't right. The structure of who I am and how I think is in a bit of disrepair. It needs some attention. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing that, as I said at the beginning, we're hoping that Pete's going to be part of this property life ongoing, and because he's got so many nuggets of wisdom and insight and things that we can look at and improve and help ourselves. But the one thing I guess I wanted to, and we've sort of talked about the networking already, but Pete, Nick and I are not natural networkers. In the four of us that have come together to bring this property life together, our partners, Rick and Caroline, are the fun bobbies. They're the party people. They're the ones that will go into a room and they'll chat to 1,000 people and do all of that. Nick and I are far more introvert and not natural networkers at all. In fact, I think we'd do our best to avoid it if we could, but we know the power of it. And I think there's quite a few in our community that are probably a bit shy. There's some big personalities as well, which is fantastic. But, there's always a few shy people who don't want to put themselves out there. They're feeling something when they see a crowded room and they don't know how to approach it. What are some top tips that you might have that could just influence those people a little bit more?
Well, thank you for sharing that about both of you. You obviously have the ability to read a room. You have the ability to kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, we're kind of observers, I think. I'll put Sarah and I as observers. We can do that. We like to be in I like to be in the room, but, it's not my natural environment. I'm happy to go into a room and talk to lots and lots of different people. Whereas my other half, Caroline, can talk to a brick wall for like 5 hours straight, no problem. It's, she can go into any room and, and naturally just, talk to anyone and no awkward conversation. It's all just like flows straight away. And I really admire that ability, but I don't have it. I have to kind of dial it up.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that might not want to come to networking because they think that's what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I think one of the things we all as humans tend to fear is rejection. And we're worried about what people think about us. So this whole kind of social comparison. But, when you use the labels like introvert, the way I'd say it is, well, we've all got introverted and extroverted qualities, but it's kind of knowing who you are. And that's the journey that I love people to go on, to get to know actually who they are at their core. So like knowing who you are, if I was going into a meeting and it was a big meeting that was really important and I had to present myself and present my ideas, I would want to take a Nick or a Sarah with me because I'd want them to tell me what I don't see. Did you notice this? Or just because there's this whole thing of humans don't do particularly well on their own. If I put you in the middle of nowhere and said, right, you're on your own, most people would really struggle with that because we kind of crave attention from people. But, I think the tendency to be worried about what people think about us is something that most of us really need to work to overcome. And one of the best ways to overcome that is to be someone who consciously makes the decision, I am of service. I want to be of service. So how best can I be of service? Well, one of the best ways is to talk to people about them. Forget you. You're really not that important. In the great scheme of things, what you can do for people is more important than what you think about yourself. And I know this is very easy to say, but it's to be curious about just asking people, how are you? Getting to know who people are. Then you're taking the spotlight off yourself and you're putting the spotlight on someone else. And then you often get to find out so much about people. And then often what happens is people become curious as to who you are. The fact that you would go out of your way to find out about how someone is, what's important to someone. And yeah, it is, I think it is, why is it uncomfortable? I think there's a few reasons. I think one is we fear rejection as humans. And let me just explain very briefly why that is. There's different theories about why. Have you ever felt rejected?
Yeah.
I most definitely have, Yeah, and it's like, it hurts. And it's like, well, why does it hurt? One of the theories is it hurts is because we are designed to live in groups. And if you were in a group thousands of years ago and you felt rejection, that was a sign that you needed to pay attention to where you were. Because if you were rejected, you'd probably die. So if we feel rejection, and we're often frightened of feeling it, but I think this is one of the real keys of life, is to learn to back off from what you're thinking and feeling and see it as if it was happening to somebody else. This is what, the Greek philosophers talked about, knowing thyself, to know that you're more than how you might feel about yourself. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think the way I'd say it is look to see where you can add value, whether you're a quiet person or an extroverted person. Put the light on someone else. How can I help you? How can I serve you? What do you need? And before you know it, you'll start building connections with people. The world is desperate for meaningful, authentic relationships like never before.
Totally agree. And I think if somebody has maybe just joined us and not done anything in property, they might be asking a question, well, what value can I add in a room where there's probably loads of people that have done loads more than me, and they probably have a bit of imposter syndrome? How can they get over that?
Yeah. Imposter syndrome is really what it means is that you feel less than, you feel not quite good enough. That's why public speaking is such a big fear for a lot of people, because I think people are frightened to show who they really are. But then, I mean, this sounds really kind of deep, but are you your fear? Are you your worry? Are you your doubt? Are you your insecurities? Or is there more to you than all of that? I'd like to think I'm more than all of that. Do I have insecurities? Yeah, of course I do. Do I have doubt? Of course I do. But that's not me. There is more to me than all of that. And I suppose that's one of the things I'm really keen to work with you guys moving forwards. I mean, Sarah, you said hope a few times. There's no hope. I'm working with you guys, right? This is going to happen. I saw some amazing people in your room. I mean, I shared, as you heard, I shared no holes barred. I showed some of the big challenges I've had recently. And that opened up the door for 3 or 4 people that had been through something very similar to me to approach me because they felt heard. And, we've got to learn to get out of our own way, Nick. Otherwise, we will always struggle. And that's what I want to do with more and more people, help people realize who they are and how they can add value. And one of the greatest values you can ever add is just being curious. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? What are you passionate about?
I think that's really important, actually. I think when people go into a room and they're networking and it's not their natural environment, all they think about is them and how they're feeling and how they were going to be in front of all these other people. And you're right. If they step out of themselves and look above themselves and go, actually, it's all about these guys in the room, I'm just going to go and find out all about them. Then the pressure is off you, isn't it?
Yeah, I still feel that. I still feel those thoughts come. I just don't sleep with them. I don't give them too much attention. I remember being in the room, going, oh, because we're also, we are very sensitive creatures. We're very aware of our surroundings. So if you go into a situation that is unfamiliar to you, it's normal, I think, to feel a little bit on edge, but again, it sounds so simple. Put a smile on your face and think, I'm here to add value. Let's face it, lots of people do like to talk about themselves, and you're opening the door for people to talk about themselves. There was so much expertise in that room. In fact, I think the people with the biggest expertise were often the quieter ones. I don't know whether you've noticed that, because we sat around the table with lots of them, and there were people that were very unassuming, very successful, and I had to ask them. They weren't going to tell me. They weren't going to tell me how great they are, because they're not. You don't seem to attract those sorts of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't really. And that's part of what I love about the network is I think people who haven't been to one before they might have been to other networking events where the vibe is very different. Or it is about look at me, look at my stripy shirt, or this kind of thing, right? So it's kind of to say, look, we try and create an atmosphere that is a bit more
friendly,
low key, friendly, and it is about those people in the room and how everyone is there to help each other. No matter what stage you're at, whether you've been doing it 15 years like we have, or whether you never
you haven't even started.
Started.
Yeah.
But there's value to be had in that room, no matter what stage you're at.
Let me share an insight which I think is fascinating. So when we look at our own experience of being ourselves, we all have a mind, but we don't really know where the mind is. No one can say, oh, this is where your mind is. We know we have a brain, we know we have a body, but where the mind is it's open to interpretation. What's the nature of the mind? What does the mind do? Well, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself. I can speak for what I've learned. So in Buddhism, there is a word called dukkha. In Hinduism, they call it Maya. In Christianity, they call it the original sin, which is, I think, the nature of the mind, that the mind can play tricks on us. Why does it do that? Maybe because it's trying to protect us. And maybe it's trying to hold on to an idea of who we think we are. Maybe it's very ego-led. But learning how to stop and step back and see what your mind is doing is so important. And you know, we're of a similar sort of age, right? We've grown up at a time where everything is speeded up. So no one's got any time anymore. Even though we do have time, we feel like we haven't got time, which is, if you want your mind to play tricks on you, get yourself into a anxious state and see what your mind does. It will go all over the place. So my coach many years ago, when he was alive, said, "What's the nature of the mind?" I can't remember exactly what I said, but he kind of laughed. He said, "The nature of the mind is it plays tricks on you." He then said, "How do you conquer your mind?" And I can't remember exactly what I said. Again, he kind of laughed. He said, "If you can't find humor in what you think, you'll be a victim of what you're thinking. If you can see the funny side of what you're thinking, because thinking's never going to stop, but realizing I am not my thoughts. I am more than my thoughts." And that's a really weird thing to say to someone. I am not my thoughts. Well, then who's thinking? You know, but to be able to, I don't know whether you have that experience. Are you able to do that? Are you able to see what you're thinking and realize that it's almost like it's not you, or it's a part of you? There's more to you than what you think.
I think that's come with experience.
Yeah.
Of being in situations, and though you live that situation, and you realize when you're out of it, if it's an anxious situation, that actually that anxiousness didn't need to happen, and you were allowing yourself to be brought along with it all. And I think the next time it happens, you're a little bit more self-aware, and you can realize that there's a way through, and it's actually, this is how I felt the last time, and this is how it played out. So listen to it. And each time that's happened, and I've only really learned that in the last probably 5 to 6 years properly, that I just step back a little bit more. Now, there's sometimes where you just fall down the rabbit hole, and then that's okay. But, you just got to learn from it, I think, again. But something that I've definitely been working on in the last few years. And I wish I'd had that when I was younger. I wish I'd had that knowledge. Not that I'm particularly great at it still, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, it's the triggers. Every day we're triggered, and I like the idea of turning your triggers into a tremor, so it doesn't. And like you say, it's not easy. And the way I encourage, have you ever eaten pickles before? Have you ever eaten pickles? No, Nick is not a pickle fan. You can't unpickle a pickle, Nick. Just so you know, if like a cucumber, it's been pickled into a pickle, you can't unpickle it. It's a pickle.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been pickled in some way, right? Growing up in this crazy world. So learning how to see your pickled nature rather than trying to be perfect, which is another part of imposter syndrome, where you try to be perfect. Well, there's no such thing as perfection.
Yeah.
Doesn't
exist.
So what about you, Nick? Are you able to stop and step back and see what your thoughts are and what they're doing and how they're making you feel?
Like Sarah, I've kind of come to this a bit later, I think, but certainly more recently, in talking about the last probably 2 or 3 years, really, become aware of that. And the more I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I actually listened to one this morning that mentioned you are not your thoughts. So that kind of, that I've been hearing that more and more. I've probably heard it loads of times before, but it's only now just started to really kind of penetrate through and to understand that, you can have all these thoughts, but actually that doesn't mean that that's reality. And so, I've been working on that and working on things like, what I can and what I can't control. So stoicism, all that kind of stuff. I love all that. And I'm a big believer in that, is to I can't go down the rabbit hole of worrying about things that I have no control over. Where is that taking me? Nowhere. Just into...
Yeah, it's fascinating what we have to go through to often work that out. You could tell someone that till they're blue in the face, but it's often through life experience. Can I ask you, how old are you, both of you?
Just turned 52.
Yep.
And 50.
Right, so I'm 55, right? So we're all of a certain age, and we're all entrepreneurial, right? We love the entrepreneurial spirit. You've obviously come across Napoleon Hill, right?
Yeah.
How could you not have come across Napoleon Hill? Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 2 books I suggest to everybody read, especially Outwitting the Devil. But, I had a real issue with Napoleon Hill, which is weird because he's not alive. But around, he said that it takes most people to get into their 50s to kind of wake up. And I was like, really? And then he also said that that's a time where most of us really have an incredible opportunity for us to do the greatest work of our lives, where a lot of people are thinking about, heading towards retirement, rather than, hang on, I've got all of this experience, I've got all of this wisdom, I want to serve. He said most people get to that age of realizing that entrepreneurship really is about serving, as opposed to, look at me, look what I've got. And I really, 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 you say, I wish you'd learned this earlier. So do I. I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. And I think we're ready. We're ready. And I think we want to help more people be ready, especially younger people.
I think you have to have lived, you have to have gone through things that are either traumatic or, or whatever, but not necessarily traumatic. But when I say that, I'm talking about kind of business stuff as well. There was, we had a very traumatic week last week. It's got nothing to, not personally, but just, it was just chaos. It was chaotic. But, it's easier to get through that because it will end. It'll probably be all right. And one thing that Caroline and I have got quite good at is telling each other, in a year's time, we're not even going to remember this thing that just happened.
Yeah.
And in 5 years' time, it'll be a distant memory and we'll probably laugh about it. So, but that I think comes with experience. I think that's really hard to do when you're 20 something or maybe even 30s.
I think it's easier if you're around other people that will support you through that process, And again, that's what networking is really all about, or masterminding. It is really fascinating. Being human isn't easy. A couple of things that you said there I thought was really interesting around, life isn't about becoming, it's about overcoming. I think becoming through overcoming. What have you overcome? That's why I've got the word intentions tattooed on my arm, because what's the intention here, right? Why do we do what we do? What do we want to have happen as a result of it? So when you understand intention, you know that something's going to happen which is in direct opposition to the thing that you want to have happen. It's called life. It's called growth. It's like, that's how it all works. That's how the universe works. Just go outside and look at anything that's growing and realize that growth is going to be challenged by an opposite force that will act in opposition of that growth. So if you want to grow, build a business, whatever it is, you better be ready, because stuff is going to come. And that's one of the reasons personally why I'm interested in working with you moving forwards, because I want to help the people in your network appreciate the power of getting fitter mentally, physically, emotionally, so they're ready to deal with what comes, so that when it comes, you're ready for it. Don't wait for crap to happen. Be ready for what's coming, because you can't, like you said, Nick, there are things that are going to happen that you can't control, but what you can control, not always easy, how you think and feel.
Yeah, and I think that network part is really important. I know that as Nick and I have, separately built our own portfolios in property, there's been lots of things that have come across and tried to, take you out at the knees and make life a little bit more stressful, a little bit more difficult. And the one thing I've learned in all of that is if I go to my network and say, this is happening, immediately I'll feel better anyway. And then the second thing is that someone will say, oh, that happened to such and such, or yeah, no, I've heard of this before. And they'll give you something that you can work on that leads you to another path that goes, oh, okay, I'm better equipped now for a solution, or actually it turned out like this and I should stop worrying. So it's that, you're sitting there with a background of trees behind you. And the thing I find fascinating about trees is that they all work together, and they're upright because of each other. And, the force that they've got, which is the storms and all of that sort of stuff that comes along, they all work together. And, I find that beautiful and, fascinating. But that's what the community is about as well. Just keeping everyone upright and sharing the load.
Yeah, trees that are on their own, they don't tend to do that well, but trees that are around other trees, they do work together,
Real team.
It's truly fascinating being a human, and in this world that we're in right now, which I don't know how you would describe it.
I don't know. It depends what you allow yourself to think about. I normally read most of the papers every day. I read like a cross section of different papers to see what everyone's talking about. But sometimes I wish I hadn't, and just like,
Yeah, I know, that whole thing of be careful where you put your mind, be careful where you put your attention. But, what's great about you two is that I get the sense if Sarah was struggling, Nick, you would just be there. Like, I've genuinely got your back, because people like to have people's backs. People like to support. And I think if you're struggling with something in your business or even in your life, especially if you're in this network, get over yourself in terms of asking for help. As my dad always used to say, look, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I couldn't believe the amount of people in your room that they want to help, but they can't, they're not psychic, they can't know where you're at, but to acknowledge this is where I'm at, not to blame, shame, criticize. You are where you are. Where do you want to go? How do we get there?
I think a lot of people struggle with the asking bit. Why do you think that is? Because I've come across this, over years and years of mentoring, coaching people, is not everyone, but a lot of people struggle with having to, or feeling that, I've got to ask for help, and it's not a natural thing to ask for help.
Why do you think, Sarah? Why do you think people? No, go on, Nick. Why do you think?
I think because, I think when I started, I don't know whether this is a bloke thing, probably isn't, but it's just how I thought, that I've got to do this myself, right? I've got to prove that I can do this. I don't necessarily, it almost feels, if I've got to go and ask for help, it feels a bit weak. I don't know, I should know this. I should be able to cope with this. I should be able to deal with this.
Yeah.
I should know everything. And I'm sure a lot of other people might, with a sign out, think that way. And I wish I could catch people like that who are younger or just starting and go, look, just take my 20 years of experience of this. It's like, you can't do this on your own. The more biographies I've read, stories I've read of successful people, it's like none of them did it on their own. Not one.
What do you think, Sarah?
I think there's definitely a little bit of that some people might feel that there is a sign of weakness, and that their persona that they've given out isn't the sort that they should know all of this already. But I think there's also probably a subsection of people where they don't want to be a bother, and it's like almost an embarrassment to ask, and it's like, oh, I don't want to bother them, and they're busy, and I'll muddle along on my own.
Do you think that is kind of, because I've often felt that. I used to feel that, I think, when I was starting out. And I think if I really kind of analyze that, is that not a bit of that fear of rejection? If I might reach out to this person, they might turn around and be horrible to me, or they might be a bit busy, so I feel bad because do you know what I mean? I think if you look deeper, maybe that was that, because I have felt that when I started out, I think.
I don't think it's one thing. I think it can be a few, but I think we want acceptance. We want to be appreciated for who we are, and no one, a lot of people don't want to look stupid. So they feel like, have you ever had that thing where you're walking down the street and you slip, and the first thing you do is look around before.
Who saw it? Yeah.
Who saw this? Because we're conscious of what other people might be thinking. But why this is so important is you get to find out who people really are, and you find out who are the ones who want to lean in and help you and support you. So Brene Brown, who's very well known, she did an amazing TED talk about vulnerability. And I think she's kind of opened the door for a lot of people to be able to say, look, I don't know, but I want to know. I really don't know. I want to know. I want to understand. I don't want you to do it for me, but I want to know. I want to understand. So I'd say to people, how important is this really for you? Whatever you're doing, how significant is it? And if it really is that significant, like you both said, well, you ain't going to do it on your own because you don't know everything, so build that network of people around you by learning how to get over yourself. Know that your mind is just playing a little trick on you, and realize this is more important than how I'm thinking. But be careful what you think, because what you think will affect how you feel. And it's not like I say, it's not easy being human, but it's a lot easier when you're around other people who have got your back. Build your network, build it, add value to your network, realize that there's nothing more important than the people around you.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I really want to be speaking now to anyone who started in property, a year back or 18 months back, and then has stalled a little bit and feels like they haven't gone as far as they wanted or at the speed that they wanted, and they might be starting to think about shelving things, and it's all a bit hard and I'm not going to do it. If you're feeling that way, you're the sort of people that need to come in and join a network of supportive people who are, doing and thinking of doing. To be in any network, and this Property Life included, it's not that everyone is a raging success 100% of the time, because that's impossible. So if you're thinking, actually, I'm wondering whether this is for me, give it one more shot, come in, have a look around the network, talk to people. Don't be embarrassed about the fact that you might not have done anything for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, because I guarantee you're not the only one. And we've all been like that. And, I think you just need to give yourself a second chance and stop thinking so much.
Yeah, as Pete says, get over yourself. And I've had to tell myself that many times. Just look yourself in the mirror and go, what are you doing? Get over yourself. Like, go and ask for help. Go and get involved. And my old mentor used to say to me one thing, he'd say, stay close to the fire. And if there's one thing I think that's really, helped Carol and I to get where we've got, is that, because whenever we found ourselves drifting or blocked, and everyone happened. I spoke to one of our members the other day who got so far and got blocked and kind of was on the verge of giving up. And it's like, well, now's the time. You need to stay close to the fire, and you need to get into the network and find that help to just get you over the line, and then you'll be off and running. Because it'd be very easy to get blocked at that point and then go, oh, this doesn't work, and you go back to where you were.
Well, that's like that story, isn't it? 3 feet from gold. You just don't know how close you are. It's so easy to give up when things get difficult or challenging. And I like what you said there, stay close to the fire. It reminds me of that other quote of, if you're the smartest person in the room, get out of that room, go into the other room, which is, you're not the smartest person, and you want to learn from all of these people. It doesn't matter whether you're an introvert, an extrovert. It doesn't make any difference. It's just about building connections, building relationships, and being curious. I love to ask this question: what are you passionate about, rather than what do you do? And look, I'm really looking forward to what we're going to do together to help people manage themselves, manage their business, and manage their property. Because it sounds like a cliche, right? But this is it. This is it.
So
this is the only one.
The only one we got. Yeah. So we need to look after it, and just get our mindset right, and we, get in the right room, as you say. Don't ever be the smartest person in the room.
We should ask the question next time we get everyone in a room: who's the smartest person in here?
See if it's a hand up.
Yeah, one person will, and we should all then just go over to that person, sit down, and go, okay, we want to learn.
Yeah.
Oh, Pete, it's been an absolute privilege to spend time with you today. And thank you so much for, just being part of our community, part of our network. And for anyone that wants to, find out a bit more about Pete's backstory and what he can offer, come along to This Property Life. But also, where, Pete, can we find you out in the ether world?
Yeah, well, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Pete Cohen. I think you can find me on Instagram, or you can go to my website, petecohen.com. I've got loads of free resources for people. I also have a podcast, which is, I think, 9 years old, nearly 600 episodes. So I can't believe I'm even saying that. It's like, wow, did I do that?
Wow.
Yeah, I did. But you know what? I feel like I've only just got started. So if people want to find me, I'm sure they will. But I'm looking forward to the next This Property Life event. It's in March, right?
April, end of April. 26th.
Yeah, it's in the diary.
Perfect.
Look forward to seeing you there. And thanks so much again for your time this morning. Thanks everyone. We'll see you again on the next one.